Hello, and welcome to our last episode of the AI Cash Grain Plus podcast. I'm Satish Nandapurkar, Director of Data Driven Strategies at Quantum Hedging, and I'm actually going to go through today a complete recap of the AI Cash Grain program. This was our first year doing the AI Cash Grain program. As I'll explain at the end of this podcast, we're not continuing it, but we're replacing it with something based on feedback from our clients. So this will actually be the last podcast, and really just trying to recap, in the interest of transparency, where we started and where we are here at the end. I wanted to begin the recap by reviewing what our goals and our approach was to running this AI cash grain program. What our goal was to deliver a good end of year price, help farmers sell their grain in a systematic way throughout the year. And the way we did that was to first start with a plan. And our plan was to have a benchmark approach to selling grain, to have a predetermined strategy, which was basically a predetermined strategy of selling an increasing percentage of expected bushels each month end from January through October. So we had what we called the typical producer cash sale index. It was what we observed of farmers. They'd start out selling slowly at the beginning of the year, accelerate, and then as they got more confidence in their yields, they would sell more to the back end of the year. So we had a benchmark where we said, let's sell 5% at the end of every month from January through April, step it up to selling 10% in May and June, at the end of May and June, and then finish with 15% at the end of July through October. So that was our benchmark. That was our predetermined strategy. And our goal was to predict markets and to have a very disciplined approach to predicting markets and use those predictions to beat the benchmark average price in corn by 8 to 12 cents, in beans by 10 to 15 cents. That was our goal, to have a measured approach, not take too much risk, and to outperform this predetermined strategy. A key to being able to outperform was to have data-driven predictions coming out of AI models. So we had developed a number of AI models, machine learning AI type models, where we fed lots and lots of data in, different data features that were relevant to corn and soybean markets. And we had the models output back to us probabilistic forecasts of where corn and soybean would go from that day all the way to the end of our program, to November 1st, to the end of October. So we'd have, as you can see in this graph, we'd have a view that, corn, in this particular case, corn on May 31st, we had a good prediction that it was going to go lower, but we also had confidence intervals. Our models didn't spit out exact forecast. It gave us probabilities, and it told us where it thought corn and beans would go with probabilities, with bounds, confidence intervals around that. And finally, we would take that prediction and the benchmark, and our goal was to beat the benchmark. So we'd rely on those model predictions to determine when to be oversold or undersold to achieve those target outperformances, the 8 to 12 cents for corn, the 10 to 15 cents for beans. Now, what added a little bit of a complication here was, if we were undersold at any given time, we could easily catch up because we're selling cash grain, right? But if we were oversold, we couldn't just buy our grain back. That was part of the rules. So we had to have more confidence if we wanted to be oversold than if we wanted to be undersold, because we could catch up very quickly being undersold. So this was our process. It was have a plan, have predictions, and then this approach of relying on the predictions, determine when to be oversold or undersold to achieve our targeted outperformance with a minimum of risk, right? We're not shooting for the moon. We've got targeted outperformance against a benchmark. Now let's talk about how we did. We'll start with corn. With corn, just jumping to the end here, we did well. We achieved a 9.5 cent outperformance versus the benchmark. Our AI cash grain ended up with a 438 average. The benchmark was at 428. How did we achieve that? Well, if you take a look, here's what corn did, Deese corn did throughout the year. It really kind of fell out of bed right at the end of May, and then dropped all the way down to sort of mid-August before it sort of recovered a little bit and went sideways. Our models picked up on that. Little premature. Our model told us to get a little oversold at the beginning of May, and then it told us to get a lot oversold right at the end of May. Perfect timing there. We got 15% oversold on May 31st, just in time to catch the corn market fall out of bed. As the price of corn was dropping, the model got a little less confident about it continuing to go down. So we went from 15% oversold to 10% oversold at the beginning of July, and then to 5% oversold at the beginning of August. And then we flattened the position. We matched the index for the remainder of the time. But luckily, being 15% oversold and keeping some of that oversell through the summer where corn really dropped allowed us to get ahead of the game, ahead of the benchmark, right? We got ahead of that price fall, and that's why we were able to achieve a 9.5% outperformance versus the benchmark. So one, it's great we outperformed. Two, we hit our target range. Three, we did out without taking a lot of risk, which we were, quite happy about. The whole goal was to use data, probabilities, a benchmark, and a plan to get this outperformance at a minimum of risk. Now let's take a look at beans. With respect to beans, we achieved a 4.8 cent outperformance now that we're 100% sold. We're at 1076.85, the benchmark 1072.09. We beat it, but we didn't quite get in that target range. We were hoping to beat it by 10 to 15 cents. We were a little timid, honestly. We got oversold at the beginning of May. We held that oversale all the way to the beginning of July, but then we closed it out. We got a little timid. As I mentioned, remaining oversold is riskier than being undersold. You can always catch up quickly being undersold. Being oversold, we can't buy back that grain, right? So we assumed we didn't have futures and options to work with to be able to buy that back with respect to the cash sale portion of our program. So, we closed off that oversell because our models just weren't confident. However, the models should have been confident because, or should have had more conviction because beans continued to sell off, but we didn't see that in the models. So we flattened that out. Now, this oversale allowed us to capture this drop. When we flattened, we missed this remaining drop. And we just stayed flat. The bean models didn't really have conviction. As we move forward, and we've taken that into account, again, we have machine learning models. So we're learning why the markets dropped and why we didn't catch it, and our models are being tuned. So our next programs will incorporate more data. Every year we keep incorporating data. But we did achieve that 4.8 cent outperformance. So we didn't quite hit our target, but we did win, which we are happy with. In the last couple of videos, I talked about what is changing with our program, and the changes are really based on the feedback we got from our clients. Continue providing AI-driven market insights and strategy, but do it in a more hands-on, more bespoke way, custom way for our farmers. So we've ended the Cash Grain Plus podcast. That's the recap that I'm doing. We're going to be offering a new free subscription offering. It's in development. It should be coming out in the next 3-4 weeks. So to watch your email. And then there's a new AI managed acres program launching this fall to support clients with a more customized service. The approach with AI managed acres is that we'll be managing each farm, each client's individual farm's profitability from a risk reward perspective, strategies tailored to the to the farm's goals, including crop insurance. So we're not going to be selling crop insurance. That's not something that you'll start to hear from us, but we'll include the risk reduction that your crop insurance already does when we give you recommendations. So, when the market drops and you're already in your crop insurance, there's no reason to continue selling many times. So that's what we're going to start to take into account, what your cash sales already are. And this will be a much more options and futures tailored type approach. Still AI driven, still data driven, AI driven models that'll support all the recommendations, but you'll have an advisor that'll execute futures and options for you, will recommend cash trades, and there'll be weekly profitability metrics reporting. So with that, I just wanted to say thank you for being a subscriber. We've really enjoyed doing this for you and doing these videos for you. We will be back. As I said, we have multiple offerings, starting with the AI Managed Acres offering coming soon. So you will be seeing us in podcasts, but this was a really fun thing for us to do, and really to test out our whole approach of having a plan, having predictions, having a process, and moving forward with that, and providing outperformance, which we were happy to do. So thank you for subscribing. Thank you for listening. And we hope to see you again.